right. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up, nod. Perfect. Welcome to HR's training on evaluations this year. I'm going to do a quick introduction, do some housekeeping items, and then we'll get rolling. We won't keep you too long today. We're only doing 1 hour today on our training. Want to let everybody know that this session will be recorded just so that we can send out an email. We like to send email recaps out to those that weren't able to make the session, and they can go ahead and watch this session. And then if they'd like to join another live session, they can do so. So we'll be recording the session today. And then we wanted to also just do a quick introduction of our team members that are here on the call that are here with me today. So again, my name is Abel Johnson. I work here on the growth team in HR. Co-facilitating the training with me today is my colleague Kyle Galloway, and also with me is Denise Stringer. We may have some others come on as well. Tiffany Whitman may be here as well. So you'll have almost the whole HR growth team here today to help answer any questions and have a great discussion. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this so we can end on time and give you back some time if we end a little early and there's no questions. We are here to talk today about evaluations. The season of evaluation is coming up on us. It's near us. Those are going to be coming due here in March, and we wanted to make sure that we had some time to talk with this group about evaluations, and we wanted to kind of approach it a little bit differently this year. As you know, the annual performance evaluation traditionally is a time where we talk with our employees about their accomplishments, about setting goals for the new year, the goals that they've maybe met from the previous year, and then also making room for improvements or providing feedback if something needs to be changed to better kind of their performance for the next year. Those are all great. We'll talk about all those in performance management. But as you can tell from the slide deck title, we've kind of inserted and baked into this training this key word, which is empathy. And this year looks a little different. And we know that with COVID-19 and working remotely, the word that some of you may go to is it's been difficult or different. If it hasn't been difficult, it's been a different ballgame. And so when we think about evaluations this year, we really want to infuse and we want to kind of bold that flexibility is key this year, and empathy should play a big part of how we do our evaluations this year. So, your primary goal should be to help your employees perform their job to the best of their ability, to help them grow. And as we all know, as leaders and managers, that requires a lot of time commitment, a lot of investment and energy. But as with anything that's worthwhile, what you put into it, you'll get something out of it. And we know that our employees are worth that time and energy and commitment. So with that being said, we'll jump right into some of the topics. I'm going to swing it over to Kyle. He'll do a quick introduction of himself and how long he's been here with the growth team. He's excited to be here. He's one of our newest members. And then he'll go over some of the topics that we'll go ahead and cover today.
Yeah, thanks, Abel. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Kyle Galloway, newer to Boise State University. This is my third month with Human Resources and enjoying every bit of it. So excited to be here this afternoon with you all to discuss empathy and evaluations. So today's topics, we're going to, discuss the understanding of 2020 and the challenges this year has brought us. Like Abel conveyed earlier, if it hasn't been different, it's been difficult, or it's maybe been both. So we're going to discuss about some of the challenges that we've all faced during the pandemic of 2020. We're going to discuss showing empathy and what that really means. But more importantly, how do we apply it to our discussion with our employees? We're going to discuss having the conversation regarding performance evaluations. What does the tone sound like this year? And how does empathy tie into the conversation as well? We'll give you guys some time to ask questions at the end, or feel free to unmic. And one more thing, we will also discuss some of the things to be mindful of, things that are HR related. So looking forward to having a nice discussion this afternoon. Like I said, unmic, feel free to input anything in the chat box and we'll get rolling. So Abel, for that, I'm going to kick it back over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So this next slide, we always like to start these sessions off. I know it's Thursday 3 in the afternoon. Maybe you've just had some lunch and you're starting to settle in. So trying to get your juices flowing and get those mics, those mute buttons off. So in one word, please put it in the chat box. Our team will try to do a good job of reading those out loud, and we'll discuss them. In one word, how would you describe managing your team this last year while working remote for many of us? The slide has a bunch of words here, but maybe you come up with your own, or you steal one of these and throw them in the chat box, or maybe shout them out. We'd love to discuss that. But what has your experience been like this year? How would you describe managing your team? I know for us, it's been actually, I like the word enlightening because it has been a different viewpoint. Disconnected. Yeah, Tim, thank you for that. Disconnected. Any other words, thoughts?
Abel Lindsay said creativity.
Creativity. Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Lindsay. Is that because you've kind of had to come up with some creative solutions to overcome some barriers? You've kind of had to think outside the box a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. You're trying to find tasks for them to do. Obviously, I jumped in on this session because I wasn't able to attend ours, and I oversee event parking. And without events, you still need to find tasks for people to do. So you're trying to find areas in which that they can assist. Like one of my staff members is assisting with contact tracing, and another member is helping with our maintenance area. So it's just trying to be creative to keep them busy and find what works best for them.
Yeah, I appreciate your input. Thanks, Lindsay. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's a great word because, none of us signed up for this. A few years ago, none of us signed up to work remote. For the most part, we didn't know that would be part of the job. And, our world's kind of been changed, right? It's been rattled, not because of things that are in our control, but the things that are out of our control. So sometimes we have to be agile. And in fact, at Boise State, we're all about being agile and innovative and creative. So I like that we're pivoting and we're creating our own kind of path. So thanks for that example. I think we had another chat that came in. Flexible. Yeah. So Shelton, thank you. Exactly. Flexible, agile. So I really appreciate these words. Humanizing. I like that one. I haven't heard that one. Matt, and I know Matt's got his hands full, so I won't make him on mic or anything, but
not yet. I can speak to that for a minute.
Yeah.
So, I just think with this situation, I don't know if humanizing is the exact right word, but we get to see more of people in a good way, and I think it's nice to be able to connect with folks.
Yes. Yeah, I think and we'll touch base on this later on the slide as well, about humanizing and about some of the layers of people and kind of the sides we get to see of people, that iceberg effect a little bit. So thank you for bringing that up. Well, I think these are all great things. One of the reasons why we do this exercise is over the past 5-6 sessions that we've done across campus, we get to do this slide, this presentation all the time, and I get to see a lot of different words. But what I'm seeing is there's a lot of more positive words to this than what I was expecting when we started this content. And it's great to see that out of, tumultuous, disconnected environments and situations, we pull together and great things actually come of sometimes hard situations. So I really appreciate your input and thoughts regarding what you've done to make it a positive thing for you and your employees. I think that's been a great thing, and that's a true attribute of a leader. So thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and jump into understanding 2020, right? How did we get here, the pandemic effect, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the meat of our presentation, which is empathy. And that's kind of it seems kind of like a little bit disconnected, the evaluations and empathy, and how does that go together and why it's important this year.
Thanks, Abel. Appreciate that. There's no question 2020 has been an unprecedented year for us all. As a university, we've had drastic changes with quickly transitioning a lot of our jobs and our services to some kind of virtual setting. We've adapted the work environment to provide social distancing for roles that can be performed virtually. And we are supporting our employees through unexpected challenges that they are facing, at home, or, such as virtual school for their kids, or COVID-19 related concerns or diagnosis. among many more things. And, currently, I think we all know the statistics, but, 80 million people worldwide have been affected with COVID-19. So, when you think about what's been challenging for you as a manager, those same challenges and or concerns or worries are also being faced by, your employees or staff members. Our lives have changed along with our work. Social gatherings have been limited, and I'll explain a little bit later on how, that can affect somebody's work-life balance. So here, are a couple of things to, think about prior to your evaluation as you have those discussions. Does your employee know what's expected of them? Have you set those clear expectations with your employee, post COVID-19? With a lot of employees working in a remote or some kind of modified schedule, it can be difficult to have metrics, on an employee if those expectations weren't clear. So, some of your employees, staff members may have never left as they may be really essential to the business. We had a session a couple nights ago with operations and, they haven't left. So is it possible that, they face some, similar challenges as those that have been working in some kind of remote environment? And I think the answer is yes. Maybe walk-in traffic has decreased, or, maybe they are stuck doing different duties because of whatever the reasons are that have changed, their work. So, because this year's been really different, we believe that empathy should play a part in the evaluations this year. And like Abel said earlier, this is going to be kind of the meat of the presentation. So for that, I'll kick it back over to Abel to discuss empathy and what that really means this year for evaluations.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. I want to pause and apologize to my growth team for hearing they get to see all the magic behind the facilitations because they've heard it about 5 times so far. So I'm sure for them, Denise is like, Abel's fun and Abel's jokes are no longer funny, so I apologize to them. But, when we talk about empathy, why did we come up with that and why is that important? Well, let's just define it, right? Let's pull out the dictionary. Empathy is understanding someone else's feelings. So that's great. One of the definitions that I'm going to provide today is a little deeper, and it's coming from one of the most inspirational minds of our time, in my opinion, is Simon Sinek. He's got a great video on it. We'll put it in the chat box if you want to listen to the whole video on empathy. But he says, empathy is being concerned about the human being and not just their output. Now, why is that important? Well, evaluations, we care about someone's output, right? We hire people, we pay them to do a job, and that's important. But empathy, we also care about people, especially in HR, and I'm sure all of us do. We care about our employees. We care about their workload, how they're feeling, their barriers, what they're afraid of, what they're cautious about. Because all these things feed into our mission in HR, which is employee engagement, right? And in order to understand that, you have to understand your people. You have to get to know the people that you work with. So it really is being concerned about not only their output and how we can get the most of their output and use their skills and ability to do the job, but also just who they are and how they're feeling. And so as you may imagine or can imagine with COVID-19 and working remotely and shifting duties and all these things, that can affect somebody's output because it affects that person. So now this becomes a little bit more complicated and muddy when we go to do an evaluation, right? So what's great, there's a solution, right? What's great is as leaders, not just managers, as leaders, we're in a great position to really understand our employees' needs, fears, wants, struggles. And because it's been a rough year, our tone and our approach should be one of compassion and kindness. So we'll kind of go over how do we put this into practice a little bit here in a minute. But using language that truly shows that you understand someone's concerns or why a project didn't get done on time or why it was delayed, and maybe that was out of their control. Maybe it was because of COVID-19. Maybe it's because of their work-life balance at home, right? They're working from home and they don't have enough space and their kids chucking toys at their head and there's a baby screaming. So all these things come to play when we talk about their output. So empathy, and I want to caveat this slide in what I'm saying. Empathy is not necessarily giving somebody a hall pass for 2020 for their evaluation. We're not saying that. But what we are saying we need to be mindful of those struggles that they were facing during this pandemic and how COVID-19 may have affected them at no fault of their own. So how do we do that? Well, one of the questions that we've already brought up, and I'll say it again, have you checked in with your employees lately? Or do you check in with your employees on a regular basis? Have new standards or expectations been set since COVID-19 hit and since they've gone working remotely? Do you understand the struggles that your employees are possibly facing? Do you have is there enough trust between you and your employees where they can come to you and they can speak freely and ask for help or seek help? So these are all things to think about. So now that we've kind of defined empathy, why we're talking about it, and how it plays a role in evaluations this year, let's talk a little bit about how do I actually take what you're saying, right? HR, that sounds great. How do I implement it in the conversations and my approach? How do I put it into practicum? So we're going to go ahead and let Kyle, I'm going to swing it back to Kyle to kind of introduce that topic. And he's got a great video that he'll show you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Abel. The video, How to Conduct a Better Performance Review Conversation, is a great video on really how to have it structured properly and set the tone and really set the foundation of the conversation to be that of a true conversation. So we're going to play this, I believe it's about 3 minutes long clip, and we'll reconvene here shortly.
Conducting the performance review conversation can be challenging, both for you as a leader as well as for the employee. The employee may be concerned that they're going to be sitting in the hot seat and get judged. They might also worry about how the performance appraisal could affect the potential for them to get a raise. You might be concerned that your feedback can cause them to get emotional or defensive or even argumentative. That's why it's really helpful to have a plan in place when going into this conversation. So I'm going to share with you 7 tips to confidently have the performance review conversation. Tip number 1, don't ad lib. Use the forms that have been provided by your company for the performance review conversation. Number 2, make sure your employee gets to prepare the exact same forms so that you can be on the same page and there's no surprises for them. You don't want them to be frustrated when suddenly they feel like they're being judged for something that they just weren't expecting. Number 3, don't just dive in and get to business. Build some rapport. Set the tone by asking them how their week went. Thank them for showing up to the meeting, and maybe discuss something like how their family is doing or any vacation plans they might have. Number 4, before you give your feedback, first allow them in each category to tell you how they felt their performance was in the past year. Tell them where you agreed with their performance opinions, and then tell them where you may have differed. This is an important phrase. Instead of saying disagree or allowing room for any kind of argument, just say, I appreciate your feedback on that. I would agree you did a great job with X, Y, and Z. Where my opinion differs a bit is, and then give the example. Number 6, when giving feedback, make sure you'll use only observable facts, not assumptive judgments. You don't want to say something like, Mike, it really seems like you've checked out and you don't even care anymore this past quarter. Instead, say something like, I've noticed you've been tardy 3 times out of the last 4 weeks. And in most of the meetings in the last 2 weeks, you've really only participated once. What can you tell me about this? This gives them an opportunity to share their side and really explain what might be going on with them. Which leads us to number 7. They may become defensive or argumentative. If so, as challenging as it may be, allow them the time to vent and listen to what they have to say. No need to prescribe an answer, just listen, and if necessary, ask them to share a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the video does a great job at explaining the importance of, your tone, especially going through evaluations that may, be difficult conversations to have with your employees. Maybe somebody's not meeting the metrics. So stating that tone and really starting off the conversation with building the rapport. I mean, those are all important. And again, just to kind of reiterate, we're not ad-libbing, we're coming prepared with a plan before our conversation. We're again building the rapport. We're allowing employees to say how well they did and, where you may agree or disagree. And most importantly, in HR, as we do performance management, we're only using facts. So we're not having any kind of discussions about performance management unless the facts are there for your employees. So just kind of remember that. And at the end, let the employee vent. Maybe the employee had a rough year or a rough couple of weeks, and they want to let you know what's going on in their life. And sometimes we don't need to have an answer all the time. They just wanted to spill out everything. And if you need to, have a conversation later on about their concerns, then follow up with a schedule. Schedule a follow-up meeting. Excuse me, it's 3:00. I need coffee. To ensure that we're taking care of our employee and their concerns. Some other examples and suggestions you could use prior to the conversation with your employee. We like these because they show empathy behind the theme. Thank you for your contributions during this difficult time. I appreciate how well you have adjusted during this difficult time. We know it's been difficult and different, so let's focus on some things that went well for you this year. And like I said earlier, your tone and approach have the ability to turn any situation into more of a positive outcome. So for that, we're gonna discuss a little bit about performance management. And for that, I'll kick you back over to Abel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kyle. Are there any questions so far? Any? I'll pause just for a second, as my colleague Casey says, a Zoom pause. Unlike her, I'm okay with awkward silences, so we can wait a minute. Please feel free to butt us in, though, or put your hand up or throw a chat in. We'd love to make this a discussion. If you have any questions or concerns, we're here to help clarify those questions while we have you. Getting into this next slide. So this graphic just kind of does a great job illustrating some of the basic tips and tricks kind of to that a good performance management and a discussion, making sure that you're providing feedback and positive feedback, making sure that you share with them, as the video said, giving them a copy or making sure they come prepared. You're asking them questions, or you have a form and they have that ahead of time so that they don't feel blindsided. Making sure that you meet regularly, right? And so that plays into kind of a bigger holistic approach of performance management. A lot of times, most of the time, we just meet in February right before the March deadline, and we have one discussion throughout the year. And really what we want to do is build that trust and that transparency and communication throughout the year. I joke on these chats, these trainings all the time about how our current performance management process and not just ours, a lot of the industries is kind of similar to Christmas with my kids. All year long, they're like, I hope I've been good, because now if I've been good, I'm going to get presents. And if I'm not, I won't. And they don't know to the last minute. So we want to keep our employees engaged, and we want them to know where they stand and provide feedback and recognition, as soon as possible and in real time throughout the year. So there's no surprises come February or March on their evaluation. Which leads into the thing, conversation is key, and to build that conversation, just like any relationship, personal, professional, it takes effort, but it takes continual conversation and building trust and transparency with your employees. And again, that means that there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it will also will get ahead of those proactive issues that may come reactive later and maybe cause more issues. So it's definitely worth the commitment and the time. Any questions about this slide or thoughts before we move on? I do have a question to pose, and we'll throw it in the chat or unmic. I see some similar faces here, Ruth and some other people, even Michelle Payne and JC. I hate calling on people, but I like to use you guys as an example, so I might throw a question your way. Hopefully you won't be too embarrassed to answer. I don't want to single you out. So the next question is, during this time, this pandemic and this working remotely, how have you as leaders and managers found a way to kind of measure the performance of your employees? Are there any roadblocks to doing this? Have you found any successful way that works for you or your team, that you'd like to share with the group and even with us? And we'd love to hear any of your feedback, what's working and what maybe doesn't work that you've tried. Ruth, I'm gonna start picking on people. Is there someone on mic? I can hear somebody.
Abel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've done is we have weekly meetings, and they're Zoom meetings, and we don't begin by how much have you done, but how are you doing, and then saying, and they're able to talk about what their week was like and what they plan to do the next week. And so the weekly meetings have been helpful.
That's great. So and so you're having that with your team, and as you said, you're kind of starting out with the human being, right? So how are you, right? Not necessarily, did you meet your deadline, but you start off by just, making sure that they're doing okay as a human being. Sounds like you're doing a great job there. Thanks, Shelton. Michelle, did you have your hand up, or did I see somebody else's?
I was going to answer your question, Abel, if you wanted. It's Ruth.
Yes, go. Oh, Ruth. Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead and pick on me, Abel.
I'm on this iPhone, so I'm trying to scroll through pictures and find that.
I was actually going to say something very similar. It's making sure I have regular meetings, even when there isn't necessarily something very structured to talk about, to give space to just check in, because when we're in the office together, you cross each other in the hallway and you say, hey, how are things going? So allowing the space for that to happen, and without having too many meetings, because people get really exhausted with all the Zoom connections, and that's been helpful to think of it. And then what you were echoing there about it being a whole year kind of process, not just a once a year, how's it going, like Christmas, but that idea that you have to have the relationship built over time, and so that they know what's expected, and so the evaluation is not a surprise.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you two are already kind of doing that within your own spheres, that you're checking in with people, whether that's a Zoom call or a one-on-one. So I appreciate that. I'm glad that that's working for you. Did we have any other hands up? Okay. Let me know, Denise or growth team, if I missed anybody. The last thing I wanted to say before we move on to this slide is something that kind of dawned on us while we were creating the content and thinking about this and talking to our employees on campus. One of the things that we may not be doing that we might want to consider this year in our evaluation is that we give our employees credit for their adaptability, right? Give them credit for making that leap from working in the office and having a structure to going home and maybe adding on different duties, or being creative and having to give them different duties, and that they're a trooper, that they've been able to hold on to the ship as these waves come, and they've been able to be agile and flexible. And I think a lot of times we kind of miss that opportunity to give feedback and to express our gratitude and say, thanks for just being so flexible. Thanks for holding on while these storms blow in, and you're still here, and you're a great team member. So I think that might be something we think about as well, as part of their performance this year. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. We're going to continue, unless there's more hands or thoughts, please throw them in there. We're now approaching my favorite slide of the deck and our favorite video. And so we'll throw that in there. We'll let you watch it. It's about 15 seconds or so, and then we'll explain why that's in there.
Look at the cute dog.
Okay. Michelle Payne, I'm going to pick on you just for a second. I saw that big smile as you were watching that. My favorite part of this training is watching that video, and I get to kind of see some people's faces. So it's kind of fun to just see your reaction to that. But you may be thinking as a group, so why is that in there? AmeriQuest has these funny, please check it out if you have some time, maybe. But they have some funny commercials. And this one is particularly funny. And it talks about, their theme is, don't judge too quickly. We won't, right? And so why we put that in there, it kind of falls in line with empathy and understanding someone's perspective. From one perspective as a manager or leader, looking at an employee, something may look off or feel off. But from an employee's perspective, they may just be innocent. They may just not know that they're doing something, or that something's off, or it could come off as wrong. And so it just kind of goes to show, and I think it ties in nicely with empathy, especially with, again, dealing with our current situation, that we give everybody a little bit of credit, and we make sure that we are sticking to our facts, right? And that we have those discussions, even if it's to say, this may be coming off a little weird, right? This may, your perception's reality, right? But having those conversations and just giving people that grace and empathy. Again, I think it's just it reiterates our point a little bit there. Plus, we got to have a little bit of smiles cracking throughout our HR trainings. So now let's kind of move on to, as we think about perception, right? As we think about our approach, what are some things as leaders that we should be more mindful of? Again, during this pandemic, especially, those stakes have risen. What should we be more aware of in our approach and our tone, and as we go to do our evaluations, things that maybe we didn't think of that we need to think of this year? So for that, I'll kick it back over to Kyle.
Thanks, Abel. Like I said, this year, we're in HR are using the word harmless, and what that means is that's anything that is out of an employee's control should not be held against them during an evaluation period. Approved leaves should not be discussed. There's a new law that went into effect this year during the pandemic, Families First Coronavirus Act, where, people were taking some time off to help, monitor the situation as far as daycare and, diagnosis. We had people that were on FMLA, ADA, and even furloughs. So, people took some time off throughout the last 8 or 9 months that was out of their control. So just be mindful of, going over data when they were outside of work on an approved HR leave, because we don't want to use those metrics against them. Again, other situations that were a little bit sticky this year, we had employees that were experiencing daycare and school issues over the last maybe 3 or 4 months, where daycares are actually closing down because of a COVID diagnosis within the daycare facility, and you have to quickly pivot and go pick your kids up. So you're rushing to get them, and you may, skip a meeting because something that was just out of their control. So just to be mindful of things that were really out of the employee's control, because we want to make sure that we're thinking about situations that could also happen to us at any given time. So we wanted to make sure that you guys kind of had the understanding about how this is important from an HR standpoint, that we don't discuss these type of inquiries during the evaluation. Again, technology, like Zoom, and, for me, I have 3 kids. My wife's working from home. I'm using a hotspot this afternoon because our bandwidth is very boggled down with everybody being online. And one of my criteria is making sure that I'm having a nice training session, and, I don't want anything to go wrong. So stuff we would never think of, right? And but we have to make it work, and we have to adjust with what it is. Again, you see the picture here with the lady wearing the many hats. A lot of us are teaching our kids at home. A lot of us are cooking lunch for our kids. We're taking Zooms in the afternoon. So we're doing a lot of things right now that is out of the norm if we were back to a 9-to-5 setting. And so be mindful of things of things that are going on in your employees' personal life that really translates to their work life, things that are out of their control. You'll see the iceberg picture here, and I'm going to have Abel. He does a great job at really explaining how this mimics or mirrors our people on campus. But just understand that the perception may not be the reality, and for that, Abel, do you want to touch base on that and explain how that ties into the empathy theme as well?
Yeah, of course. So a couple weeks ago, and I've told this joke so many times, Denise is probably rolling her eyes, but a couple weeks ago we were watching Shrek with my kids, and it was like, ogres are like onions, they have layers. It's like, yes, people are like onions, we have layers. And so the iceberg effect, many of there's more to underneath the surface of the iceberg than we see. And as managers in our old world, we may only have seen the top layer, right? The professional side. Now, as I think Matt had put, we get to see a lot more of people. We get to see a lot more underneath the iceberg, under that layer of ice, just because of our work situations. And we have many layers as human beings. Getting back to Simon's definition of empathy, right? Yes, we're concerned about the output, but we're also concerned about this person's lifestyle, their behavioral, their psychological, what motivates them, because we care about them as a person. And so all of these layers may now be a little bit more exposed because we're working from home, and you get to see a little bit more of that person. And, if you're an extrovert and you kind of feed off of energy of other people, similar to me, I don't get a lot of interaction. I get no interaction right now from other colleagues in person. And that may affect my output a little bit just because of my personality, and I have to adjust a little bit. So all these things are things that you should be thinking about as a leader, and those struggles and the iceberg effect. So anyway, this does a great job of illustrating that. And hopefully we keep that in mind as we think about the individuals on our team and what their strengths are and what they may be struggling with, and how that affects, again, that output before you go to mark a 2 or a 1 on their evaluation, or however you evaluate them. These are things to keep in mind and be mindful of. So any questions or thoughts about that at all before we move on to the last bit of our segment of our training? All right. Well, I don't know if any of you know this. I'm sure all of you probably know this by now, but I'm going to let you in on a secret. And that secret is HR doesn't know everything. So you probably know that. But jokes aside, we moving on to those layers that we talk about, the mental health, we talk about this a lot right now, especially with our current work from home situation. It's been a hot topic because it's been something that has really come to light, I think, even more, and it's really real, and we're seeing those effects again of people and their output. But we partnered with Matt Neese. Many of you know Matt because he's an expert and he knows this field better than we do. And so there's a clip we're going to play from Matt, and he talks about empathy a little bit and kind of echoes what we've been saying. But a lot of times I think it's just important to hear it from the experts themselves, and not just from HR, because again, we're not the experts. And so we want to partner with those that are. And so we're going to play this clip, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the things that he points out.
When it comes to applying my knowledge of empathy, there's a really great framework that helps me keep in check. On one end of the spectrum, there's what we call cognitive empathy. This is when I understand cognitively what's going on for another person emotionally, but I don't have my own emotional connection to that experience, and therefore don't care enough to do anything about this understanding. On the other end of the spectrum, there's emotional empathy. This is when I'm connecting so much emotionally with my perception of what the other person is feeling that I lose myself in a moment. I become flooded with my own emotions in an attempt to align with the other person that I'm unable to be helpful in that situation. And then in the middle, there's what we call compassionate empathy, which, as you might expect, is a healthy blend between the first two. Based on my working knowledge of this person's life, when I'm feeling compassionate empathy, I have enough information to infer what they are likely experiencing. I have enough emotional connection to this person and their circumstances to have the desire to help. And because I'm staying grounded in my own identity, I'm able to be moved by this experience and the ability to compassionately or empathically support this person.
We were very grateful to have Matt's partnership with this clip. Like Abel said, we're not the experts, so we're very thankful to be a part of a university where we have experts in areas such as empathy and mental health. And so we were definitely we appreciate Matt helping us out in regards to our theme, and hope you guys found that valuable. To move on,
when it comes to
another piece of our topic today was, really understanding someone's life struggles during a pandemic. According to the CDC, COVID-19, has been really stressful for a lot of us, right? Fear and anxiety about a new disease has been really overwhelming, and it causes a lot of strong emotions in adults and in our kids, lives. And really, public health actions such as social distancing, limitations, that makes people feel isolated and can really increase their anxiety. And ultimately that could affect someone's work, right? So, stress during an infectious disease outbreak can cause, I'll have Abel speak on this a little bit later, but it could cause changes in our sleeping and, eating patterns. It could worsen chronic health conditions. It could, worsen mental health conditions, increase tobacco and alcohol usage. So a lot of things are layered on people's personal lives when you are in a stressful environment. And, many employees and staff members here on campus, we're going through the same thing. We have those same worries. So especially, during this time where we're really going through something that a lot of us have never ever gone through before, is it crucial? Is it important for us to show a little bit of grace and empathy? And I think the answer is yes. As a leader, it's your job to provide those tools such as EAP to ensure that, our people, our employees who we value is in a position to really succeed at work and in their personal life. Abel, do you want to touch base on kind of some of your behaviors that may have changed during the pandemic?
Yeah. And also maybe you can share your soccer story too. I think we talked about that on another session. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, again, even though I'm working from home, I don't have the space in my house is not big enough with me having kids and such that I don't have an office with a door. I'm in my master bedroom. So essentially, I'm by my bed, and a lot of times for me, it's hard to flip the switch from, okay, it's time to turn off your computer. It's 5:00. So I tend to work a little bit more, or it's like, well, my bed's right there. I'll just kind of roll off my chair and into my bed, or vice versa. And maybe I'll go without showering today. All those things, I'm sure all of us are probably in our head thinking, yeah, I've done that. But these sleeping patterns and all these things could contribute if we're not careful. And for some, it may just be that way to some of our output, right? How we produce, it may affect that. And so again, as leaders, being mindful of these statistics and your employees. And if there is a slump in someone's performance, maybe some of it could be attributed to some of these things that we need to be thinking about as leaders, and not just, well, maybe, this person is lazy or they don't seem to care. And so these are another perspective to look through these lens that we're kind of providing. So also just, jokes aside, the eating patterns, even, let's be honest, the fridge is, 5 steps away from me in my home. So all of these things can contribute that. And I know my waist size has been a, outward expression of that. So these are all just things to think about as leaders. And I think and if you have encountered any of that, please, we are helping here in HR. We're here to help provide those resources and remind you that we have EAP programs. We have tools to help with that if you have an employee that needs some of that help. Again, getting back to the trust and the constant communication. If you have that trust with your employee and you're having those check-ins, when that flag gets raised and they can feel like they can open up to you, then you can either send them to our way in our direction or provide those resources to help your employee get back on the right path and to get them back healthy. So those are all things that we would encourage you to do and keep an eye out for. Any thoughts or questions around any of that?
Abel, I could, tell my story, especially being new and, not knowing the university's campus, like I normally would, being, on site, especially in HR, as you meet, different client groups and, you advise, leaders and HR type of inquiries, right? But for me, working in a new job, I have 3 kids at home. 3rd, 4th, and we have a high schooler freshman. And they did virtual online school this year. And yeah, more power to people that teach, but for people like myself, I have a communications degree. Math is not my thing, right? So when I'm helping my daughter out with 4th grade math and I'm using a calculator, but I'm expected to show them how to do it on hand, then I get pinged with an ER case. my stress level, rises a little bit, right? Because I want to ensure that my daughter has the tools that she needs to succeed to get her grades, right, respectable. But then I need to meet the metrics of my supervisor to ensure that I'm taking care of an employee's needs. So it's been really, I don't know if rough is the right word, but since they started school to about now, thank God they start school next week, in person, at least from a hybrid standpoint. But it's been really chaotic in our household, and I could feel myself, having a lot of stress that I've never had before. So really talking through things with my wife to ensure that we're on the same page. Talking through Abel, my boss Tiffany, to have that little outlet that I needed, because it's been rough for a lot of us, and we're trying to do the right thing to ensure that everybody's safe. But at the end of the day, we need to ensure that we're meeting the metrics of our employer, and things like EAP will work for those that will truly need it. So we recognize that it's not just us that is going through things, but it's going on campus wide. So if we could be that piece of support for you all to give you guys what you all need, please feel free to reach out. So just wanted to share that with you as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Kyle's got some great experiences, and I appreciate him sharing a lot of that's personal, but I think it proves the point of coming from our own lives, what we're going through. So that being said, we've got 12 minutes left. This is kind of the open question segment. Before we do that, we've been throwing some links in the chat. Denise, thank you for doing that. So our team members have been throwing some resources in the chat. The Simon Sinek talk is in there. The EAP link, if your employer, you need an EAP link and more information on how to do that, that's in there. And then other resources we put at the end of our session. Once we're done, we'll download this recording, and again, we'll send it out to everybody on this call, as well as those that couldn't make it within these two divisions. And you'll get all that in your email to look back on. So I just want to make sure that that you're not missing out. All that's available to you. And then I'll pause just for a second. Do we have any questions? We did have a pre-submitted question form that hopefully you all saw. We sent out about ahead of time. We didn't get any questions, and that's okay. But we just want to pause to make sure that we're answering any questions now. And again, we have Denise and some other members of the growth team, Tiffany, here to help answer those questions. FMLA, ER, and anything that you need to ask. So I'll go ahead and pause for a minute, give you a few seconds to mic in. All right, so no questions. And if you have questions later on, please feel free to email either Kyle and I or Denise or Tiffany. And then we also have the HR growth inbox that we manage. Did we have a question that just popped up? I just missed it. Let's see if I can. Go ahead, Denise.
Well, the question was about CEC. So we don't know that for right now. The legislatures are talking about it right now to see what we get this year, if we get anything at all. So we won't know for a while.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. Before we log off for the day, I'll let Kyle kind of take us home. But before I pass it to him, I just wanted to express my gratitude personally and professionally from HR for all the work that you all are doing as leaders within your own sphere, and being just great managers and supervisors to helping your own team be successful. This year, more than ever, I think is a more important year to rise up and be a great leader and to take care of those in your charge, because they may be suffering either silently or maybe not. And we just want to make sure that we're connecting with our employees. We're checking in. We're making sure that we don't care just about their output. We don't care just about the form getting into HR and the evaluation that needs to be done. But we're caring about the person. Again, getting back to that definition of empathy. So I know that many of you are doing that already. We praise you. And for all of us, I'm sure that need to have some room for improvement, I would encourage you to do that with your team. But thank you for lifting where you stand. And we truly appreciate the work that you do on behalf of your team and the university. With that being said, I'll let Kyle, if you have any closing remarks, take us home and then we'll let you all log off and give you back some time.
Absolutely. No, again, we want to thank you all for joining us. We hope you found some of the information valuable and useful in your role as a leader. We encourage you all to please, reach out if you guys have any questions or concerns. We're here for you, and we look forward to serving and giving you guys a good guidance that you guys will need. So thank you, and I'm glad to give you guys back 8 minutes of your time. And have a great long weekend as well.
Have a good afternoon.